On today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, Sony, if they're able to buy Paramount, they plan on breaking it up and selling off CBS and Paramount Plus and a bunch of other things too. Also, we saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. We're going to review that film. Disney Plus, Hulu, and HBO Max are about to merge into a special bundle. We're going to talk about that. Amazon Video, you know how they just recently added ads? Well, they're about to add a whole bunch more. We'll discuss that. And Peter Jackson is bringing us new live-action Lord of the Rings movie starting in 2026. We're going to talk about that and a whole bunch more. The John Campea Show podcast starts right now. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming to you from right here in our quaint little studio, brought to you in part by our friends at Mint Mobile and BetterHelp. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, TV and streaming, and all sorts of good stuff, not just giving you our opinions, but hopefully giving you some information and context so you guys can form your own well-informed opinions, whether they're the same or completely different than ours. Joining me in studio today, I got Ray Ora.
Hello.
Jonathan Voico.
Hey, everybody.
The Insnider, Jeff Snyder.
Good to be back. Good to be back.
And most importantly, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to start off by talking about those predetermined topics that I listed off. Then in the second part of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions. Now, the super chat feature, it is still open, but it's not going to be open for much longer. So if you got a thought, theory, opinion, question, or observation that you'd like us to address, as long as it's appropriate for us to address on the show, go ahead and drop that in the super chat. All right, guys. With that down, let's get things started with this. The Paramount drama continues. You guys remember that Paramount looks like they're putting themselves up for sale. They entered into a 30-day exclusive negotiating window with Skydance. Skydance gave them their best and final offer. Apparently not good enough. Meanwhile, Sony stood underneath its window with a boombox on its head saying, "Hey, Paramount, I'll give you $26 billion. And well, the exclusive window with Skydance is open. They've authorized conversations with Sony, but now inside sources are saying that if Sony does acquire it with Apollo, that they plan on breaking up Paramount, taking Paramount Pictures and merging it in with Sony Pictures and selling off CBS, their networks, and Paramount Plus. The reports say this: Paramount Global's vast entertainment empire would be broken up if a buyout bid from Sony Pictures Entertainment and Apollo Global Management succeeds, according to a new report. The New York Times reported late Wednesday that the plan would be to sell off the CBS broadcast network along with Paramount's cable channels and its streaming service, Paramount Plus. Paramount Pictures would be merged with Sony's existing movie studio, the report said, while Sony and Apollo would maintain Paramount's TV and movie library and intellectual property, which really is where the value of this lies. I mean, at the end of the day, when Disney bought Fox, people in movie circles thought they're buying Fox so they can get X-Men. That was the least of their thoughts. They were buying Fox for all the IP and everything else that came along with it. That's what they're doing. That's what it looks like is Sony eyeballing. Now, an important note here is that the report also goes on to say that the plan is that movie output would not drop. So like when you take the combined movie output of Paramount and Sony, that if they put these companies together, that they would maintain that kind of level of movie output. I know Rob brought up a really valid point saying he was afraid that if Paramount, say, got merged in with Sony, that maybe just we'd lose that many more movies. Apparently that's not the case. But also merging it in with, they're still not clear whether that means Paramount just dissolves and becomes a part of Sony, or like Fox was brought into Disney, but still maintains its own kind of shingle. Anyway, Jeff, we were talking about this potential merger and deal and all that kind of stuff before. Does it make sense for Sony? What's the benefit of them for selling off like CBS, Paramount Plus? And if they do get Paramount, do you think they just absorb them in, or do you think they have them as their own kind of shingle under Sony like Fox is under Disney? How do you see this?
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out because I didn't think that they would get rid of Paramount Plus. I didn't think that that would be part of the plan because Sony doesn't have a streamer of its own. And I think that Paramount Plus has been growing fairly steadily. I mean, it has more market penetration, I feel like, than like Peacock or even, certainly Apple, right? Apple gets a lot of press and they spend a lot of money, but at the end of the day, a lot of people aren't watching Apple TV. A lot more are watching Paramount Plus. So I am a little surprised that the New York Times report includes that. But I understand why they'd want to shed a lot of these like linear cable channels, right? That's what is sort of causing, I think, Paramount to lose money, right?
Well, the whole broadcast business is dying,
right?
Like the traditional broadcast business. It's not surprising they want to get out of that, I suppose.
And I mean that is a relief though to hear that if Paramount Pictures and Sony Pictures merge, like there's still a ton of slots on the calendar that need to be filled, right?
Yeah.
You can't just like say, okay, we're going from 12 movies a year at each studio to now just 12 total. Well, I mean the calendar is already thin as it is, right? They're making so many fewer movies, I feel like, than they used to,
especially post-strike.
Right. So I that is a relief to hear for sure.
I'll say this though. I'm not almost the same reason you brought up. I am not surprised they'd be wanting to sell off Paramount Plus because I remember at CinemaCon, it might have been 2 or 3 years ago, Sony got up on stage at CinemaCon and made a very bold statement. They're so like, we are not in the streaming business. We are a movie production company.
Right.
That's what we are. So, I mean, look, they've got Crunchyroll, but that's different from the Hollywood machine. So I'm not really surprised that they want to maintain because, Sony has kind of positioned themselves as in the streaming wars, Sony sees themselves as the arms dealer. Right. And I think if they absorb in Paramount, my guess, and I'm just guessing, is that they just want to ramp up production on the guns that they then want to
on the
sell
big
out.
IP, you mean? Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? According to sources, if Sony does become successful with Apollo in their $26 billion bid to buy Paramount, they're then going to turn around and like sell off the traditional outlets like CBS, some of their other networks, Paramount Plus, and just kind of focus on the studio. Do you think that's going to happen? Do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, that down. Let's talk about this, shall we? Last night, Ray and I went out to go see Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Yeah. Now, I really like the most recent trilogy. I wasn't a huge fan of War, but Dawn, Rise, loved them. Absolutely loved them. The story of Caesar is absolutely fantastic. And when they showed us footage of Dawn of the Planet or Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes at CinemaCon, I went from being interested in the movie to being psychotically excited for it. So Ray and I went to go see it. We put up our out of the theater review on the channel last night, but to flesh it out a little bit more, I loved it. I really enjoyed it thoroughly. Do I think it's the best of the new bunch? I'll still give that crown to Dawn. So yeah, I'll still say Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is probably the best of the new bunch, but I think this might be a solid second best of the 4 most recent movies and incredibly enjoyable. And here's some of the things that I love. Director Wes Ball, he focused so much on the characters. And, we said in our out of the theater review, he's building this entire new world. Like even in the legacies of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and Planet of the Apes in general, this is a period of time in this world where the apes are just developing now. Humans have only recently, in terms of generations, kind of become the subspecies and all that kind of stuff. And it's a brand new world exploring what does hierarchy look like here? What does society look like here? What does community look like here? How does this world run and operate? So he wants us to believe in and value and become attached to this world. But Wes Ball understands that the best way to get us connected to this world is to have us connect to the characters in it. And so right from the beginning of the movie, he starts pouring a lot of energy into getting us attached primarily to Noah, his clan, and the characters that surround him. And that pays off huge dividends as the movie progresses, because I can imagine there's a number of things that happen in the movie that I may not care about if I didn't so deeply care about Noah and his family. and the characters he's with and the people he's traveling with, because they focus so much on character, I became infinitely more attached to the events going on around them. One of the main themes, and I'm not going to go into spoilers here, but one of the main themes of the movie that I found was the distortion of faith, which I thought was profound. Because the movie starts, the very first scene in the movie is a funeral of Caesar, right? And you know, some words on screen about how important Caesar was to the apes. That's just the opening shot. And there's a funeral for Caesar. Then the screen goes dark, and then it says, many generations later. Okay, so we pick up now much further down the line. And we find in this world that for some, the teachings of Caesar have been lost. There are the faithful, though, who are like, Caesar taught, ape shall not kill ape, and that ape shall be this, and ape, like all these like fundamental things. But then we meet Proximus. I think that was the name of the king, right? The king ape. I think it was Proximus. I might be misremembering that. But this whole kingdom that Proximus is building that we see in the trailers, but he has taken the simple teachings of the faith of Caesar and completely bastardized them and twisted them to promote and ensure his own power. Kind of like a lot we see in the world today. Anyway, like twisting what the true original pure faith is into something that's ugly and distorted and mutated for political power. Anyway, that being said, there are other several main themes. Like, for instance, there's this great idea in there about the differences between society and community. And that's juxtaposed with the life of Noah and his clan versus Proximus's big kingdom and all that kind of stuff. And all these things are playing out while we're on this conveyor belt of a story, moving us from where we were in those Caesar Planet of the Apes movies and where we know this world is going in the Charlton Heston movies, where the apes ultimately have primacy over the entire world. I just thought, first of all, the visual effects. If you thought they were good in the last Kingdom of the Planet, like the last Planet of the Apes movies, they even take it another step farther. Like there's this, like, forget all the hair and the fur and the movement and the eyes. There's a scene where one of the apes, let's say, falls into rushing water. And I'm looking at it from a visual point of view. And I'm like, I worked in visual effects. I could not believe what my eyes were seeing. Like, I couldn't believe I was not looking at an actual monkey in rushing water. It was absolutely, and the whole movie that way. There's a couple, Ray, I don't know if you noticed, there's a couple of shots of a hawk flying in the sky that looked kind of matted on top of something else. Like it looked like it was, it didn't quite look right. But that was like a minor thing. Everything else looked so remarkably good that it blew my mind. So, like, again, do I think it's the best of the Apes movies? No, I still think that's Dawn. And is there a couple of narrative choices they made that they could have made a little bit clearer? I think so, yes, which is why I put it below Dawn. But overall, I had a wonderful time with this movie, and I thought it was great. Ray, what did you think about it in general?
First of all, the only negative I have about it is maybe it's 10 minutes a little too long, I think. I mean, but I wouldn't know what parts to take out. Noah, my thing was, if I could attach myself to this character, and Westball did a great job of doing that. I'm so interested to see where he goes from you. Everyone will see it, but from here on, I thought the visuals were great. I didn't see anything that was wrong, to be honest.
Again, the only thing is every once in a while, the composite of a hawk flying against the sky looked a little weird. And that's funny because that's the simplest visual effect in the movie. But aside from that, everything else looked incredible.
How are the performances? Like Macy and Kevin Durand, I think, is Proximus. And
I was thoroughly impressed.
Yeah.
And actually, you know what? I even said to Ray, I said, Ray, open up the IMDb for this. See if the guy who does, what was his name? Raka?
Raka,
right?
Yeah,
You see this orangutan, right? In the trailers. His name's Raka. And I'm like, Ray, look up the name of the actor who does that, and then go to his IMDb and tell me if he's the guy who plays Bortus in The Orville, because I could swear that's his voice. And sure enough, it was his voice.
The sounds from this film, well, it probably had something to do with being in the Dolby Cinema.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime
probably, yeah.
anything went or like just made a loud noise, I startled. Because there's parts in this movie that are so tense that I really was like almost covering my eyes, whatever. Just because there's some tense parts.
There's like seriously, yeah, 100% there was.
Where whenever they go into that sort of thing, I was just like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? If they do any action, it looks great. I mean, I just can't wait to talk about it more after everyone goes out and sees it.
Yeah,
I don't want to say too much.
And it sounds weird because we just came out of a movie, and my primary thought should be about the movie we just saw. But one of my very first thoughts coming out of the theater was, I cannot wait for the Legend of Zelda movie. Because Wes Ball is directing the live action Zelda movie.
It was a pretty good turnout last night, too.
Oh, it was packed. The theater was packed for an
that was the
advanced
first time
night.
we actually had the line. We had a line at the front door.
We had lineup going out the front door. Yeah. It was kind of crazy. So it was a nice packed thing. I think it's going to hit that $50 million mark. So, yeah, again, the best of the Planet of the Apes movies? No, I still think that's Dawn, but I had a really good time with it. I hope you guys will too. Did some of you guys see it at that advanced fan screenings last night? If so, whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? We are living now in the streaming age. The world of the streaming wars, if you will. And it's been, as everybody predicted, getting more and more expensive. Gone are the days when Disney Plus launched at what, $6.99? I think they launched Disney Plus at $6.99. I remember
it was either that or
$5.99 because it was $6, I think.
Yeah, it was either 6 or 7. I can't remember,
Yeah,
but I remember I was at that garbage event D23, and that's the day when they released and announced it. Now we're launching, and you get pre-sales for Disney Plus, and they had this. Now it's like $16 or whatever, and it looks like it's only going higher. And we've talked about on the show before that the number one enemy of the streaming services is not piracy. It's not movie theaters. It's churn. Churn is the number one enemy of streaming services. And again, churn is when somebody like you or me signs up for a service to watch a show. And when that show is done, we cancel the service. And then maybe we'll sign back up again in a few months when another show comes on that we want to watch or something else is on there, right? They're trying to combat churn. Well, Disney and HBO or Warner Brothers, whatever, I don't care what they call themselves now. Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery think they have found a way to help combat churn, and it's a pretty good idea because according to Deadline, Disney is now entering and creating a bundle deal with Disney Plus, Hulu, and HBO Max, also just known as Max, but I will still call it HBO Max. This comes to us from Deadline, who wrote the following. Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery are breaking ground in streaming with a bundled offering featuring Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max. The companies are aiming to launch the bundle this summer. The exact launch date and the price point have not yet been announced, but plans call for both ad-free and ad-supported versions to be available. The move creates the first cross-company partnership for any of the top-tier streaming services to come to market as the race to catch up with Netflix began in earnest about 5 years ago. It follows years of speculation and public musings by top executives about when building across the industry might reduce friction and begin to make streaming more cost-effective for programmers and consumers alike. Pay TV operators long suffered as a third-party bundlers in the cable package, but while distribution deals with the likes of Roku and Amazon are key to any streaming service gaining traction, it's mostly every app for itself in the streaming era. All right. I always believed eventually something like this would happen, but I confess, I thought we were still a number of years away from this happening. And I think this is a great idea for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have not yet seen the price point, but I guarantee it will be a cheaper price point than having them individually.
Yeah.
So let's, for arguments, I can't remember the exact cost right now, but let's say I'm paying $15 for Max and I'm paying $15 for Disney Plus. That's $30. I bet you the bundle is going to be like 24 or something along those lines, right? So number one, it's going to save us money. Number two, it is going to reduce churn. Because maybe I'm done now watching, I don't know, Agatha on Disney Plus. but I ain't going to cancel my bundle because House of the Dragon.
Yeah, you'd
It's
be giving up so much more now.
Yeah, and now you are literally, that's it exactly, Jonathan. By canceling, you are actually giving up a lot more than if you're just subscribed to one of the individual deals. So listen, anytime that one of these companies can come up with something that is A, good for them, and B, good for us, I'm all for it. Now, will it work? I'm not sure.
I think their only problem now is that it's too long of a name. They should call it like one name. Maybe call it Cable.
Maybe call it cable.
Maybe even
Cable,
force you to
Cable Plus.
force you to get a little box with a remote.
that a wire runs into your house and plugs into your TV.
We're going back.
Everything's heading backwards, man. Everything's heading
It's
backwards.
certainly positioned as like an alternative to Netflix, not
Right.
necessarily a
Yes.
Netflix killer, but something that can compete in the marketplace with that Goliath and the other ones like Amazon and Apple.
How would you feel if you were Netflix, knowing that these huge streaming platforms have to join in order to? I'll be walking around like Netflix, like, yep.
I'll be honest with you.
Oh, Amazon too.
I don't think we are that far away from Netflix themselves joining into some kind of a bundling deal. Churn is also an enemy of Netflix. And the reason I could see them joining into a bundling deal with somebody is not because they're afraid of the competition, but just as a way to advance their own business by reducing churn. So, I mean, listen, we've already seen some of these partnerships, but not between streamers. So wasn't it, which one of the carriers, I don't know if it was Verizon.
It was
Yeah,
Verizon.
if you got a new Verizon plan, you got Disney Plus thrown into it and something else.
It was an awesome price for like a bundle.
Yeah, it was crazy
like
good.
$20 for like
Because
Max.
Verizon was subsidizing it.
Right.
And just this past week, Mint Mobile announced that if you sign up,
Plus.
Ryan Reynolds put his face there on screen and said, hey, if you sign up for Mint Mobile right now, you get Paramount Plus for as long as it exists, but you get Paramount Plus. So we've seen those streaming partnering with other industries. But seeing now the actual, and two of the big heavyweight streamers partnering together, this is pretty impressive.
And they're big competitors. I mean, I won't be doing this bundle because I'm getting Max free through my AT&T fiber.
That makes sense.
So, and it wasn't like a 1 year. It's just like, it just goes on.
Always?
So I've never paid for Max.
So as long as
dang.
you're on AT&T, you get Max for free?
Yep.
That's actually a pretty good
But
deal.
I think the big question here is what happens with Peacock, right? If we were just talking about
That is the big
Paramount Plus going away essentially, right?
They're going to team up with
right?
Netflix.
Then Peacock is sort of the one that's just sort of standing alone. Will they end up joining this bundle because they have no choice almost?
So who else do we got though? So you've got, who are the main players now? As of now, let's take Paramount Plus out of it.
Right. So then it's Peacock, Disney Plus, and Max, and then the other three
Well,
streamers:
then we got Amazon,
Apple, Netflix, Hulu.
right, and Disney. I mean,
then
Hulu's
there are
basically a
niche
part of
ones.
Disney Plus already. Yeah. So we're already starting to see this contraction in the business. But you're right. What does Peacock? Because listen, while Peacock is not one of the major players in the streaming world,
Right.
Comcast is a huge, very cash-rich company. And they're going to want to make, that's Universal, by the way.
Right.
They're going to want to make moves of their own. So I don't know, maybe he's on the phone with Jeff Bezos and trying to work out maybe an Amazon deal or something. I don't know.
Let's not forget they're going to be losing the WWE next year. So that's one of the Peacock's big.
Because, they're losing Raw.
Oh, they're
I know-
just losing Raw?
Well, I don't know if they're just losing Raw, but I know
Oh, yeah, you're right. It
Netflix is
just
only
Raw.
getting Raw.
Oh, okay.
Like they're
Sorry.
not getting SmackDown or as far as I know, they're not. And then you're right, like Apple becomes a possible thing. I mean, Apple is more cash rich than any of the other players here. So I mean, they could always just maybe offer a combined deal because Apple's putting out some incredible content.
They better
just
go
don't have
somewhere.
more viewers.
They better go somewhere because the Office news that we talked about yesterday.
Yep, going on Peacock.
I'm going to be watching that for sure.
I know
At least
that-
the first episode.
I know that Peacock does have a deal with DirecTV because with
Yes,
DirecTV,
they do. Yep.
you can get it for $4.99 a month, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, guys, what do you think? I personally love this. I'm going to be canceling my current Max and Disney Plus thing as soon as this comes out, and I'm going to sign up for the bundle. I'll probably get the ad-free bundle, but whatever. I mean, I think this is great for everybody. How do you guys see this? What's the next big move that's going to happen in the world of streaming? Because you know how this stuff works, right? Like once the seal gets broken, you usually start to see a lot of activity very quickly. So I don't think we're going to have to wait a month to find out what Peacock does, what Paramount does, what Apple does, what Amazon does. Anyway, whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we still need to talk about, speaking of Amazon Video, they're adding a whole bunch of new kinds of ads to your Amazon Video viewing experience. How intrusive are they going to be? And Peter Jackson is going to be bringing us new live action Lord of the Rings in 2026. We're going to talk about that and a few things more. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second and thank one of the sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, my mobile service provider, and they should be yours, Mint Mobile. We want to thank a sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. My favorite spring cleaning takeaway is the post-clean clarity you get. Wow, how have I been living like this? It's kind of like when you find out that you've been paying a fortune for wireless when Mint Mobile has phone plans for just $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. My last mobile service provider was quite good, but ever since I switched to Mint Mobile, I've enjoyed even better coverage, better phone clarity, and I'm paying less than a third of what I paid to my old provider. Say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bills to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions may apply. See Mint Mobile for details. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for being my mobile service provider and for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, a little while ago, speaking of streaming, Amazon Video announced that you would now need to pay an additional $2, $2.99, something along those lines, to have your Amazon Video be what it has always been, ad-free. That with your current plan, they were going to start putting ads and commercials into the programming you're watching unless you pay an extra $2. Now, a lot of people got upset with that, and I personally did not, because frankly, all the other streaming services were upping their prices. Like, remember, what is it? $15 for, or $8, $9, whatever. Disney's current ad-free price, Disney's current ad-supported price is what Disney Plus's ad-free price used to be.
Yep.
I mean, so they've all been adding. Plus, for me, Amazon Video is free. Not because they give it to me for free, but because I have Amazon Prime because I want the free shipping. And between my wife and I, not that I'm saying my wife shops a lot, but my wife shops a lot. And so personally, I probably save like $50 a month just on shipping costs. So I get Amazon Prime for the shipping, and it just so happens that I get Amazon Video for free. So that's fine. But Amazon is not done, because according to a new report, they're getting ready to introduce not one, not two, but three new types of ads. The folks over at TechRadar wrote this. Amazon has revealed that three new types of adverts will be appearing on its service: carousel ads, pause ads, and trivia ads, all of which aim to get you from Prime Video onto Amazon's main digital storefront. Starting with the carousel format, when you encounter a commercial break on Amazon, you might see this option, which allows advertisers to showcase several products via a sliding lineup. It'll automatically pause when you interact with it and unpause when the interaction ends. Next up are pause ads. We're seeing other people do this too, like Hulu. The kind Hulu has had since 2019. And were recently added to YouTube. Rather than appearing when Amazon has scheduled a commercial break, pause ads will appear when you choose to pause your show or film. So you hit pause, an ad's going to pop up. Amazon's versions will link to products on its store and will even give you the option to add to cart if you're interested in buying it. Lastly, trivia ads will tell you facts about a product and give you the chance to earn rewards by completing certain tasks, like by buying what is ever advertised.
I'm
Hey,
in.
you get points if you buy this thing we're showing you. So, 3 new kinds of ads. We've got carousel ads, pause ads, and these trivia ads. Okay. On its surface, when I first read about this, I confess I got kind of riled up. It's like, come on, this is ridiculous. Until I realized this isn't going to interrupt my viewing experience any more than it currently is. The carousel ads will just be where an ad would have been anyway, so that's fine. A pause ad is only there if I'm pausing the show.
It's just an image.
It's
Yeah,
brilliant,
images,
frankly. I've always been obsessed with like that. I thought that was like a genius addition to the advertising canon.
Yeah, I mean, you're paused anyway, so an ad goes, okay. And the trivia ads, again, is not an addition to the other ads. It's just going to be in a place where other things are already. So while it feels very intrusive, when you actually analyze what it is they're doing, you're actually not getting any more interruptions to your viewing experience at all. So I got no problem with it. And again, if you do have a big problem with it, pay the $2 extra.
Yeah,
Just like every other streaming service is making you do to have ad free. I don't know, Jeff, what do you think about this?
Right, Amazon's just trying to maximize the money that it makes. I mean, you got to hand it to Jeff Bezos. And if they can bring advertisers to the platform and get money that way, and get money from people looking to avoid those advertisers, it's like that's 2 new revenue streams that you didn't have last year.
Right. And again, listen, if you can add something that benefits you and doesn't impede me at all, like doesn't cost me anything, I have no problem with that. Look, I was pausing the show anyway. I am interrupting my viewing experience by choice.
Right.
You want to slap an ad up there?
Who cares?
While I'm going to the fridge to get some peanuts? Fridge peanuts? Anyway, whatever. While I'm going to get myself a snack out of the kitchen? That's fine. It doesn't bother me. Oh, there's a commercial break, but instead of a regular commercial, you're going to play like a carousel? Okay, I'm not paying attention anyway, so that's fine. I mean, It doesn't really impact me at all.
Right. And if it does really bother you, then spend the $2 or $3 to avoid it.
Yeah.
Right?
Which again, every other service makes you pay a couple of bucks extra. As a matter of fact, Amazon's $2 is less than what a couple of the other big streamers make you pay in difference between the ad-free and the ad-supported plan. So again, it's heading in the wrong direction. I agree. But this particular step in that direction isn't that egregious. So
I also tend to watch television on Amazon and fewer movies. And I feel like if it was movies being interrupted, I'd be a little bit more upset. But with television, that's sort of what I've come to expect. Yeah.
Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? The fact that Amazon is introducing a whole bunch of new kinds of ads, but apparently, and we'll have to keep our eye on this, it's not going to be any more intrusive than where the commercial breaks currently are or when we pause the show. So I don't really see a lot of drawback unless they start taking advantage of this and, going overboard with it. But what do you think about it? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. That down. Let's move on to this. The torches have been lit. Gondor calls for aid. More Lord of the Rings movies. Well, it became official. We heard a little while ago that Warner Brothers had signed, sometime in 2023, that Warner Brothers had signed a deal to be able to produce more Lord of the Rings films. We haven't heard anything about it since until today, as it has been now announced in Variety. Warner Brothers to release new Lord of the Rings movies, The Hunt for Gollum in 2026, Peter Jackson to produce, and Andy Serkis, who of course played Gollum and was Peter Jackson's second unit director, to direct the new movie. This is what Variety wrote. They said the following. Warner Brothers will release the first of its new batch of live-action The Lord of the Rings films in 2026, which will focus on Andy Serkis's Gollum. The original Lord of the Rings trilogy filmmaker, Peter Jackson, and his partners, Fran Walsh, who is also his wife, by the way, and Philippa Boyens, are producing the movie and, quote-unquote, will be involved every step of the way, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav said during an earnings call on Thursday. All right. So the only thing to me that could make this news better is if Peter Jackson himself was going to be in the director's chair. But having seen that movie that Andy Serkis directed with Claire Foy and Andrew Garfield called Breathe, which I know it didn't do. I know a lot of you guys did not see Breathe. Andrew Garfield, Claire Foy, go look it up. It's a wonderful film. It's a smaller, character-driven, beautifully emotional, without feeling manipulative. It is a wonderful film that was directed clearly by a guy who knows what he's doing directing. Now, he did Venom 2, and I personally like Venom 2, but even I acknowledge it has some shortcomings, but I think most of the shortcomings in Venom 2 came from the script rather than the direction of the film. Be that as it may, Andy Serkis was also Peter Jackson's second unit director. Peter Jackson trusted him so much that when Peter Jackson decided to direct the Hobbit movies, he had, Andy Serkis come and be his second unit director. So if it's not going to be Peter Jackson, you got the right guy doing it. There's a couple of big things that make me very excited about this. Take a look at this. Number one, that Peter Jackson is producing it, and not like Steven Spielberg, just producing in name only, which Spielberg does a lot. According to Zaslav, at least he's going to be involved in every single step of the process of making this movie. And why do I believe that? Because of point number two, and this is maybe the most important thing. Walsh and Boyens, who wrote the screenplays for the original Lord of the Rings movies, are writing the screenplay for this. Let me repeat that. The writing pair who wrote the screenplay for Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King are returning to write the screenplay for this. That's huge. And being that that's also Peter Jackson's wife, they're not lying when they say he's going to be involved in every step of the process. And then number three, for me, just because I love Breathe so much, Andy Serkis directing it, I love. Now, what do I think about them making it a Gollum movie? You know my feeling on prequel stuff. I prefer stories to move forward. I would have liked to seen what's happening in the Shire and in Middle-earth in general after the elves hightailed it out and went back into the West. I mean, that's where I would like them to go. I'm not big, but I felt the same way before Rogue One came out, and I think Rogue One is masterful. I love Rogue One. So would I prefer them to tell another story in a different era? Yes, I would. But does that mean that the movie still doesn't have the potential to be absolutely fantastic? Obviously, it still does. And again, with Walsh and Boyens actually writing the script, it gives me a lot of hope. It gives me a lot of enthusiasm. And I'm excited to see where they go with it. And listen, as great as Caesar is, and as great as Thanos is, Gollum is the single most groundbreaking, greatest CGI character ever. And so let's see what they do with it. I'm actually quite excited about this. Anyway, Jeff, you heard this news. Surprised, not surprised? What stands out to you?
Not
here?
surprised at all. I mean, this is an inevitability, right? You
Right.
can't just have Lord of the Rings chilling on the shelf or whatever feature-wise. Yeah, great to see Walsh and Boyens back. I think that is reassuring for fans. But they're co-writing the script, right, with Phoebe Gittins and someone by the name of Artie Papagiorgio, which is the greatest name.
Wow.
ever.
The greatest,
I mean,
he should have been a professional wrestler. Oh no, here comes Papa Giorgio.
Lord of the Rings by Artie Papagiorgio. I like Gollum, and I think that you're right. If it's not going to be Peter Jackson himself, then who better? Like who understands Gollum better than the guy who played him, Andy Serkis, who's been directing big movies as well with Venom, the Venom sequel, and the Mowgli Jungle Book movie. So I dig it. Were you aware though, John, that someone actually already made this movie?
I did not.
It was a 2009 fan film directed by Chris Bouchard that runs about 39 minutes, and it
Really?
apparently got like great reviews when it came out in 2009. I think it's maybe available on YouTube. I'm not sure, but THR has an interesting story about that.
That's interesting. I did not know that. Papa Giorgio, somebody's saying in the live chat, this sounds like a pizza place, which is true. It kind of does. I love the now. I've already seen some people in live chat saying, "Wait a minute. So what's the relationship between this and Rings of Power?" None.
There isn't any, yeah.
Yeah, there's no relationship between them. Amazon is doing Rings of Power; it's its own thing. This is going to be completely different and separate from Rings of Power, and it's not going to have anything that connects them. They might have some of the same characters. Elrond may pop up and whatever, but it's not the same Elrond as the one in Rings of Power. Now, I've also seen a lot of people, not just in our live chat, but also online, saying, "Why aren't they doing the Silmarillion?"
Well, how do you shoot that?
Yeah, listen, guys, listen. I've been saying this for 20 years. People asking for this to get made in a movie. It's not filmable. It's just not. It would be, because as a book, it's all over the place. And not that the book's not great, but that can work as a book. I don't think you can make that into a coherent, watchable, engageable movie. I think it's great as a book, and I would encourage anybody to pick up the book and read it if you want to get really into a lot of the lore of Middle Earth and all that kind of stuff. But I can't see them. It would be, Mark Newman puts it really well. He said, if you try to watch that as a movie, and if you try to do it at all true to the book, it would come across extremely disjointed.
I could see it as like animated vignettes.
I could see that too. That might be the better medium for it.
I don't know if I need to see existence be sung into form, but
now I've also seen a number of people say, well, wait a minute, there's that Gollum video game.
Yep.
That was really not well received.
2023's worst game.
Yeah, and it was not well received and did not sell well. Could that hurt this? Listen to me. If I go out onto the street right now and stop 100 people in the street and ask them, have you played the Gollum video game? 98 of them are going to say they never even heard of it. So it's really a non-issue. That's a non-issue. However good or bad you think the Gollum game is, I don't think he's going to have any issues on this. But let me ask you, Jeff, what do you think about the decision, though, to go to Gollum? Like, what do you think about the decision to make the movie based and surrounding Gollum? I mean, clearly Walsh and Boyens must have a good idea, but I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, again, I don't know my Tolkien, so I don't know the other corners of this universe that it could go. But I always liked Gollum. To me, he's kind of the signature character of that franchise, and it makes sense that they would want to sort of give him another adventure.
Right.
So yeah, that's just what I think. But again, I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings guy. I did like the trilogy though, but like Hobbit, I didn't go down that path.
Yeah, I mean, The Hobbit for me, I mean, there was so much happened with The Hobbit. Like, number one, it was supposed to be 2 movies, and Guillermo del Toro was supposed to direct. And then they got so far down the road in pre-production, and then Guillermo del Toro had to leave. So Peter Jackson didn't have much choice but to step in and direct it himself. And then all of a sudden there was a mandate, I guess, to split it into 3 movies. I'll never understand this. Lord of the Rings are 3 big-ass books, and each book got 1 movie. The Hobbit is basically a pamphlet. It's a short, I read it, it's the first book I read as a kid. It's a little book. And they took that little book, spread it into 3 movies. Giant Lord of the Rings books, 1 movie. Little tiny Hobbit book. So, I mean, a lot of things went wrong with that. I still like The Hobbit. It just was clearly not nearly as good as The Lord of the Rings. So let me ask all 3 of you guys this, though. We all engage with other fellow movie fans and stuff like that. Is there, especially after the disappointment of Rings of Power, a show I didn't hate, but I was disappointed by, is there still a hunger for Lord of the Rings? Because remember, since the great Lord of the Rings trilogy, which some people think is the greatest trilogy of all time, not me, that's Star Wars, but a close second would be Lord of the Rings. We've had The Hobbit, which, again, regardless of how you feel about The Hobbit, I think everybody agrees it was a step down from The Lord of the Rings. And we've had Rings of Power. Do you think there is still a passionate audience that wants to see more Lord of the Rings content? Ray, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I never really cared for Gollum. What I liked about the Lord of the Rings films was the team, like the group of
the fellowship.
Yeah.
Yes, and like I'm always ready for a swords and shield movie. Like I can never get enough of those, especially if done right and the scale is huge, like the trilogy was. Like I'm ready for this. It's just like who they're hunting for never interests me. I don't know why. Like they could hunt for anything else. I don't really care for that character. I'm sorry, Mr. Circus. But yeah.
Jonathan, you think people still want to see Lord of the Rings stuff?
I do, and I think that it's somewhat exciting that we're dropping into this similar age that we're all kind of familiar with, and most people would say is their favorite time period of this lore. I think this is going to be, it would have to be somewhat of a smaller scale movie, I think. It's just, I don't know. I think on the surface, we're like, okay, the hunt for Gollum, that sounds boring. We don't even know how that story is going to flesh out. It could be really exciting. We just don't know. It's not just about the hunt for Gollum. It's the characters involved. It's what's at stake. I'm assuming the hunt for Gollum means this is when they were trying to get him, and then they were going to torture him to get the information.
Yeah,
of the ring.
when Sauron's agents were out after him to try when they were hunting for the ring. Here's my concern. I have like 50 favorite scenes from the Lord of the Rings movies, but
Gollum
one of
is
them
right
is
there.
definitely when Gollum is having that conversation with himself.
Oh yeah.
And they kept the camera angles to, like, I just love that scene so much. But Gollum to me is kind of like Hawkeye and Black Widow. Great characters that work best when they're not the primary character. When they are a part of an ensemble, they shine. Totally shine. And to me, that's what Gollum is. Gollum is an amazing piece to an overall tapestry of a movie. I don't know if Gollum is your main character and if that'll work. So I see somebody in the live chat saying, well, what about Caesar? I mean, it's kind of like I guess, but I think Caesar's a little bit more of a front and center character. So I don't know.
I think that's totally fair. I think that you could look at Gollum as like, oh, he's great in short doses, but could I spend a whole movie with him? Like that's a lot with that voice and everything. So I think it's totally fair to question. But again, if it's the hunt for Smeagol, then I suppose he'll be on the run or something, and half the movie will be, people searching for him. Right. And so he's really only in it for kind of half,
By the way, Nerd of the Rings in the live chat points out, I honestly wonder if Gollum will not even be the main character. The story could easily be an Aragorn story. That's true. Then you get a younger actor. Do you go out and get Vigo back? Or
You know what I actually see this? I know what this is. This is going to be Lord of the Rings' take on 48 Hours.
Okay, Gollum, we got you out of Sauron's fortress, but we only got 2 days. You got to go track down this Bilbo guy you're talking about.
Just get a Nick Nolte-esque character, and you're good.
And it'll be Tom Bombadil. Yeah. Tom Bombadil and Gollum on a 48 Hours jaunt. There you go.
Yeah, John, Gollum's going to be like, Roxanne.
That's how you put it to us. If Lord of the Rings will still be relevant, like when this comes out, like to the general audience, I really don't know, to be honest. Like the new the generation now is like, I think, so finicky about what they go to the movies for and what they don't. I don't have no sense of anything right now when it comes to box office or what's gonna make.
All right, I love what Mark Newman is suggesting. Saying, okay, so whoever is, make it a buddy thing between Gollum and another character. Whatever your character is, have it be played by Gary Busey. Well, Gollum, I'm down. I'm totally down for that. Let's go. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this news? Personally, I'm thrilled. I cannot wait for this. Maybe not everybody will feel the same. I think there are several really good reasons to be optimistic about this, but however you feel about it, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we're now going to move on to the most important part of our show, which is taking your live comments and questions. But before we do, we're going to take another moment and thank another sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at BetterHelp. Guys, we want to thank a sponsor of today's video, BetterHelp. Listen, we all carry around different stressors, big and small. When we keep them bottled up, it can start to affect us negatively. Therapy is a safe space to get things off your chest and to figure out how to work through whatever is weighing on you. I've said for a long time, it's time for us to start prioritizing mental health as much as we prioritize physical health. You know, we encourage each other when we go to the gym to take care of ourselves physically. Well, it's time we start encouraging each other to take care of ourselves mentally as well. So if you're thinking about taking that step and prioritizing your mental health, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Campea today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at BetterHelp for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get over to your questions here, shall we? Jonathan, what we got up first?
Okay, first up we have Carlos Souza. Will there be a Deadpool 3 reaction or ticket watch?
Yes and yes, 100%. Now, as long as they don't out of nowhere drop the tickets, which they have done sometimes. They say, tickets available now. It's like, what? But as long as they let us know when the tickets are going to go on sale, we will be doing our next ticket watch. How many have we done? 2? I think we've done 2 ticket watches. I think we did Spider-Man No Way Home, and then I think we did Doctor Strange The Multiverse of Madness. I think. So, yeah, that'll definitely be one, and then definitely an out-of-theater review, and then definitely a full open spoiler discussion for Deadpool 3, 100%. All right, what's next?
Dildar the Glorious says, you know the Rock's energy drink Zoa? There's a reason he's been going in so many bottles. Think about it. How else does the Rock spread his energy?
Rock is going to be facing piss in bottles jokes for a long time. Again, I am in no position to judge The Rock for such a thing because I did the same thing myself, so I wouldn't have to leave my computer screen while playing World of Warcraft. So you do you, Rock. You do you. All right, what's next?
Juliana Goodwin says, what is a coming-of-age movie you loved as a kid and are now scared to watch because it might not hold up? Mine is Now and Then. Not familiar with Now and Then.
It's a great one.
I don't know that any of the ones that I would name, I have any fear about not holding up. Probably because I go back and watch movies I like again and again over the years. Like Stand By Me is definitely one of them that stands out to me. A lot of people have told me they don't consider Sandlot a coming of age story. I kind of do. So Sandlot is one of those, but I don't know. Jeff, you got one that you'd be afraid to go back to?
Say Anything.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Is that
I feel like such an 80s classic that it's acceptable, right?
Like, yeah, like I remember liking it, but I wonder if I go back and watch it again, if I would like it as much. I would worry a little bit.
It's not really a coming of age show, but you know what? One that really did that for me, and it truly did not hold up. I grew up, because I remember I saw it as a little kid, like a little kid. And I just had in my mind that I love that movie and then spent many years loving it. And then I think in my early 20s, I watched it again. The original Pete's Dragon.
Oh, dude, I love the original Pete's
Not
Dragon.
the remake one.
Yeah, the original, the cartoon.
Yeah, the original one. And I watched it again.
What's cartoon live action?
I'm like, not quite as good as I remember it, but I loved it as a kid.
Come on, those jams still hit, man. I'll be your candle on the water.
Which Blood in, Blood out. Total coming of age story.
Coming of age on that one.
All right, what's next?
All right. Robert Pruser with a 2-parter. Still blows my mind that some people blame Iger for ATFF or whatever Chapek did. Iger didn't tell Chapek to screw over Scarlett, piss off the Russo brothers, hire his banking buddies, and here's part 2. Take away Feige's full creative control and give some of that to his buddies. Push out too much content on Disney Plus. Piss off Pixar. Putting all of Pixar's movies on Disney Plus. Chapek was a joke.
It is hilarious to me when I see people try to defend Bob Chapek. By the way, a guy that when they first hired him, I said, I like the pick. On paper, it was a good pick. But it clearly didn't work. And people say, well, you know, it was Bob Iger that greenlit this movie. Bob Iger doesn't greenlight any movies. Bob Iger is not the studio head. Bob Iger runs theme parks and cruises and IP and merchandising and movie studios, whatever. He has people who does that. And yeah, a lot of stuff got greenlit, but there was a lot of stuff that was greenlit before Bob Chapek took over that was intended to come out on a 3, 4, 5, and 6 year roadmap. Marvel executives have now come out and confirmed that once Bob Chapek took over, his mandate to Marvel was rush it. Get it out the door. We need, according to Marvel's executives, crank out as much as you can, as fast as you can. And that was the whole thing. And all that stuff. But there are still people out there that try to say, oh, no, it was actually Iger. It's like, no. Hey, listen, Iger's not perfect. Iger has made mistakes. He'll continue to make mistakes. But no, all that stuff that drove Disney like to the brink, it was Bob Chapek stuff.
That's the problem with living quarter to quarter, right? Is
Yes.
You're just like, I need it now, and there's no long-term vision. And so while it may, obviously there were incredibly trying circumstances in the world, I think, when Chapek was running things, and there's no playbook for it. It's like, well, what do we do? Do we put movies in theaters? Do we pull them back? The Pixar thing may have been the right play in the moment, but it was a bad move long term, because now things have recovered and people are just expecting Pixar movies to be at home, and it's like, no. So I think that Chapek suffered from a lack of long-term vision.
Well, like the other thing too is, like, I remember, and I've always conceded, like every time I kind of bash on Bob Chapek, who, look, from everything I've understood, is actually a really nice guy and all that kind of stuff. But I was always quick to point out, let's not forget, Bob Chapek took over Disney in the most inconceivable, there's Vincini again,
Inconceivable.
set of circumstances with the global pandemic. And that's why I think we let him slide on everything. But it was that day, Jeff, I still remember where I was when the news came out that Bob Chapek was doing a top to bottom reorg in the company, where he stripped away the studio head's creatives authority. He created that new middle layer of management. And then he took his banking buddy and put him in charge of making decisions about what content got greenlit and where that content would go, and took all of that away from studio heads like the heads of Pixar, the heads of Disney Animation, the heads of Disney Pictures, the heads of Lucasfilm, the head of Marvel with Kevin Feige. And that was when I went, okay, wait a minute. And that's when Bob Iger started to speak up and say, no, wait a minute, that's dumb. That's a dumb thing to do. Anyway, we could go talk about this for the next hour. All right, what's next?
Okay. What is next? Where do we leave off? GT says, I miss hearing your show's intro music. Did you hear today?
Yeah, so what happened was we've moved into the new studio, but it's going to take us a few weeks to get all the kinks worked out and get everything all together and all that kind of stuff. So what that has meant is there have been some days, and hopefully you guys haven't been able to tell the difference. There have been days that I've actually had to run the show from my desk. Like, I've been the one controlling all the graphics and the camera switching and all that kind of stuff while hosting the show, because we've been working out some stuff with Jonathan's computer. So on those days, I can't do the whole intro thing with the intro music and then have myself ready to go. So I've just been starting at the shows that start off with just me going with no intro music, nothing. Greetings and salutations, everybody. Those are shows that I was controlling and switching from my desk. And then days like today, when the intro music does play, that's because Jonathan's controlling the show again. And hopefully will be controlling the show from here on out. So,
King Daddy, I have never taken credit, but I do take credit today because I am doing it today.
yeah, that's right. All right, what's next?
All right. But then again, also mistakes come my way too. So I have to take ownership. Ian McAllister says, I have been huge into dark fantasy lately, specifically 80s. I just rewatched The Black Cauldron and watched The Dark Crystal for the first time. Both amazing. Any suggestions? Dark fantasy. Well, there's Legend.
Legend, yep.
Labyrinth is
Labyrinth,
my fave.
Legend. I mean, it's a little bit further back. I would, oh, damn it. What's the one? Crawl.
I knew you were going to say
You knew I was going to say Crawl.
Dude, that movie does not hold up, but
Nope.
if you haven't seen it, it is some 80s kitsch, man.
It shouldn't hold up, and it's glorious, just as it is.
Dude, that movie messed me up when I had to, I don't want to, okay.
Okay, but since you brought it
someone
up,
gets killed and it messed me up.
Is Pan's Labyrinth considered?
no, and that's
No,
definitely
it's
not
modern,
80s.
it's not 80s.
Yeah, that's more
Oh,
modern.
sorry.
2000s.
But whenever you just give me an excuse to rant just for a second about Dark Crystal. Because Ann and I were just at an event recently, and somebody was there dressed as a Skeksis. He was dressed as Chamberlain.
Mm.
And it was, listen, I
Looks like Gelfling.
yes. I freaking love Dark Crystal so much. And I was worried when Netflix was doing that series. And then they did it, and I thought it was wonderful. And then the idiots canceled it after one season. But, oh God, please, Netflix.
I never saw that. I should go back and watch that.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So Netflix, either please do a season 2, or Amazon, Apple, Peacock, somebody pick it up. Pick it up and do a season 2 of that show, please. I would love to see it. Anyway. All right, what's next?
All right. We got Ian McAllister's. Ian McAllister. The Lord of the Rings: The Hunt for Gollum, directed by and starring Andy Serkis. Could Viggo and McKellen return?
I doubt it.
My problem with that is they're going to be aged even more.
Yeah,
well,
Ray, how old is Viggo Mortensen now?
Viggo is
Because I mean, he's 20 plus years older than he was when they made that.
unless they de-age him.
That's a huge pain in the ass. For like, it's one thing to de-age for a couple of scenes.
Yeah, it never looks great.
No,
65.
like even in The Irishman,
He's 65.
he's 65. Viggo's 65 now.
I don't know if he can pull that one off.
Even The Irishman, which did a very good job, but man, when you try to do it for too much of the movie, like Robert De Niro just didn't look right in a lot of that movie. So McKellen, maybe because he's Gandalf the Grey. You can have him all. I mean, that's fine. But I doubt Viggo Mortensen. I doubt it. But don't count it out. All right, what's next?
Cody Hunt says, watch The Descent. So good. Do you think she made it out at the end, or did she imagine that? I've debated about it, but sequel trailer implies she did.
Well, I was about to say, there is a Descent 2 that definitively answers the question. The Descent is my second favorite all-time horror movie. I mean, the way, and here's the funny thing. The first half of the movie, the monsters don't even show up. And my gut is like shredded. I'm like, ooh, I'm so stressed just in the first half of the movie, and the monsters haven't even showed up yet. It is a brilliant horror movie. I love The Descent. I even like The Descent 2, not nearly as much as the first one, but The Descent is totally fantastic. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. Like I said, my second all-time favorite horror movie.
I like that one, but I forget the ending. So, but I do thought if I recall, I thought she survived as well.
Yeah,
I didn't think it was all.
Again, there's a sequel. So so there you go. All right, what's next?
Cody Hunt is back and says, I love how they honored Caesar at the beginning.
Yeah, like I said, it's no spoiler. Literally, the movie, the first frame comes up. It's Caesar's thing. They don't dwell on it. It's just Caesar's funeral. And then that's it. The screen goes black and they move on with the movie. And I thought it was really good to lay the foundation of the conflict that happens then. They didn't give us a number of years. They just said many generations later. So I thought it was important for them to do that. All right, what's next?
Okay. A. Marcella says, John, please help me understand, how is Tales of the Empire better than the 3 Dooku episodes from Tales of the Jedi or the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars? I know you hate the prequel era, but damn.
They just are. They're just better. I had no interest in Tales of the Empire. None. Because again, I don't really care a lot about prequel stories. Like, okay, Morgan Elsbeth, not a really important character. And like all that kind of stuff. I just found myself like no other Star Wars animated thing. Like I was, you know what? It felt more grown up than a lot of the other Star Wars animated stuff to me. And again, like the Dooku stuff was great. I'm not taken away from that. Not at all. It's just that I thought this was better, but that's just me.
Okay, I'm going to throw this up on your screen. We got a little casting news here.
Oh, I saw, but we're going to save it for tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll save it, but just wanted
John Malkovich joins Fantastic Four.
pop that in there, but yeah.
We'll cover that one tomorrow when we get to, we'll be able to go more in depth on that. So who's he? He's Mole Man.
Mephisto.
All right. Mephisto.
Always.
All
Okay.
right, what's next?
Cody Hunt's back. Do you think Noah is a descendant of Caesar?
Nah. That's simple. All right, what's next?
All right. You mean he's not a Skywalker? Okay. All right. JT. Hey, John. Hope you and the crew are well and healthy. Okay. So after seeing Kingdom, are you more excited and intrigued about the Zelda film with Wes Ball? I think
Yes.
you are.
Look, the single most important thing that goes into whether or not I get excited about a movie is who's directing. That's it. And I've already liked Wes Ball as director, but when I got to see what he got to do with a vast world and do complete world building and all this kind of stuff, aspects he's going to have to bring into Legend of Zelda. That was my first thought walking out of the movie was, now I really can't wait for this Legend of Zelda movie. I'm very, very excited for it. All right, what's next?
Okay, we got Team
Caboozles.
Piracy. Reports of Godzilla -1, most pirated title right now. Is this a failure on the studio or not having an international distribution plan, or would have been equally pirated if it was available legally?
I think both are true. I think it would have been as pirated as anything else, but I think, people are going to want the legit good copy when it comes. Look, it goes all the way back to when Napster was around. For those of you who are old enough to remember Napster. Napster was the first real big mainstream pirating thing where people could just go and get their music for free and not pay for it. And then Apple came along and realized, you know what? People want to pay for content they like. You just got to offer them an easy, convenient, and affordable way to do it. And so Apple iTunes was the first ones to come along and said 99 cents a song. And it blew up like crazy. And nothing hurt the music piracy at the time more than that did. Not having something available. Listen, there are people who want to watch Godzilla -1. So give them an option to do it. Because if you don't, they're going to find a way to do it that does not profit you. And listen, I get there's theatrical windows. How long has it been since Godzilla -1 came out?
They actually took it out of the theaters like way earlier because of whatever they signed the deal with Legendary. And
But honestly, what was the release date of Godzilla -1 here? I feel like how long ago?
Was it the end of 23?
Yeah, it was like last November, wasn't it?
It was the end of 23.
Like we're talking like 6 months.
Yeah.
People want to see it.
it was
And
December 1st.
Yeah, it should definitely be available. I definitely think that they bungled it, but at the same time, like you said, John, piracy was an inevitability. Excuse me.
yeah.
Yeah,
I can't talk this
He
morning.
echoed off into the distance. T.
I was reading about the deal that they made, and there's so many aspects to it. It's so weird. Like, I don't even think -1 even released in some parts of Asia yet.
Yeah. They, again, it is a ridiculous thing. You've got to have a plan for this. You can't wait that long. Especially, you can't have it released in certain parts of the world and not others when the whole globe is kind of wanting to see it. Well, the whole globe.
And it won
the
an
movie,
Oscar.
movie didn't even make $100 million in the box office.
And it won an Oscar. That should definitely be available,
Yeah.
at least in North
Should
America.
be available. All right, what's next?
Dat Boy says, for the X-Men, the most important thing is to obviously get a good director, and my current pick, if they want to stay in-house, would be Ryan Coogler.
My thing is, you could name any good director and that would be fine. I've seen nothing in Ryan Coogler. Look, I've seen a lot in Ryan Coogler that tells me he's a very good director. So I'd be totally thrilled if he was directing X-Men. But I've seen nothing in Ryan Coogler that says X-Men is specifically really good for him. He's a great director. So if he directs, great. But I can name 10 other great directors that if they were announced, I'd be super happy with too. But I don't see anything from Ryan Coogler that tells me he's perfect for X-Men. I can't really think of any director off the top of my head that makes me think they're perfect for X-Men. But he'd definitely be one of the directors that I would be very excited about if they announced him for sure. But there are others as well. All right, what's next?
There is another. Amin says, May the 9th, Chip and Shatter.
I love that. If May the 4th is Star Wars Day, then May 9th shall forever be Dune Day. May thy 9th instead of night. Get it?
In case you weren't a big enough nerd,
boy.
now you have
Now
the
you're
Dune
even
Day.
bigger.
Oh, boy. Don't
Happy
tell
Dune
anyone.
Day. May thy 9th chip and shatter. I like that. All right, what's next?
Okay. Raymond Verada says Disney Plus bundle deal free at Verizon for 6 months.
Yeah. So they've got that, and now Mint's got with Paramount, and AT&T with whichever one Jonathan's got, Max, I think. So these deals, but now we're actually getting streaming services working together. It's kind of crazy. All right, what's next?
We got CM Waters, film enthusiast, who says, seeing Kingdom tonight, loved your review. Was there anything besides being good that assured you that Wes Ball will make a great Zelda movie?
I've just mentioned a little minute ago. He had to completely create this world and then introduce us to this world, get us to understand the function of this world and how its characters inhabit it and all that kind of stuff. That's exactly going to be some of the key challenges he's going to face for doing a Zelda movie as well. And now that I've seen he can do it masterfully while maintaining focus on the characters, it makes me very excited for what he can do.
Imagine the first shot of his movie. We've already seen it, like in the beginning of the trailer.
Yeah, kind of
where
have.
you see the landscape,
Yep.
and then you see the where he's going at the end of it. It's gonna be. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for the next Apes movie too.
Oh yeah.
If
yeah.
there is one.
But yeah, Ray brought up a good point coming out of Apes, which is like, we're gonna have to wait a long time for the next Apes movie because this Legend of Zelda movie that West Ball's doing next, that ain't gonna be a short project. That's gonna take a while. So then, do they move off of West Ball and get a new director?
Yeah, they may not wait for him.
Or do
exactly.
they wait around for him? I mean, I kind of hope they wait for him at this point, but I would get it if they bring in a new director.
I think it's going to depend on the box office receipts for this one because
100%.
Like I said, I think that they're a little nervous about this.
All right, what's next?
Okay, Seconds from Disaster says, "What did you expect? What did you expect? Black leather? I laughed so hard at that. Threw an Uno reverse card at the Fox movies. What would you prefer, yellow spandex?"
Yeah, I mean, that's a line in X-Men 97 when they were referring to costume. What would you prefer, black leather? Which is, of course, is a joke about the original X-Men films where they wore the. By the way, I like the look of the costumes they had in the first one, but that's just me. But that was a really good joke. All right, what's next?
All right, Rat from State Farm says, "Lord of the Rings is in my top 3 franchises, but I feel like nobody asked for a Gollum movie. Didn't they learn from the Gollum game that massively flopped?"
If you think that the Gollum game flopped because it was Gollum, I don't know what to tell you, because no. If the game was great and enjoyable, the game would have sold well and functioned well. But for a lot of people, it was just a terrible, terrible, terrible game. Now, listen, I agreed. Would I prefer them focusing on different subject matter? Sure. But at the end of the day, do you make a good looking and an actually good movie? Because you can, like a lot of people tell me, John, if they made a Old Republic Star Wars movie, that would get everything. No, it wouldn't. If it's not good, it won't mean shit. I don't care what you make the topic of it is. If you don't make a good movie, that's all that matters. Listen, I wasn't all that excited for a Rogue One. I don't care about, how they got the plans to the Death Star. That seems like a rather minor point. But they made a great movie. And it made like $1 billion. I mean, so I agree. I would prefer them to do it on different subject matter, maybe moving the story forward instead of doing a prequel thing. But that doesn't really matter. If it's really good, and that's a huge if, it'll be successful.
And we don't even know, like, again, and it was mentioned, but, we don't know that he's the main character. It says it's the hunt for him. But,
yeah,
it was the hunt for Red October, but it wasn't just a submarine.
Yeah, it wasn't just about the sub. Or D.B. Cooper. There was a movie once when I was a kid called The Hunt for D.B. Cooper. Yeah, I mean, look, it's just.
Did they find him?
Even if it is, never did find D.B. Cooper. Never found D.B. Cooper. Still the biggest unsolved mystery ever.
It's
in the
Loki.
United States.
They answered that. It's Loki.
Yeah, that's right. Loki was D.B. Cooper. Yes, but the video game is completely irrelevant. It has nothing to do with it at all. All right, what's next?
Star Wars: The Hunt for Porkins. Mr. I says with a $20 super chat.
Oh, thank you.
I know X actor X role, but if it was my choice, and since Apocalypse would be a CGI character a la Thanos, we don't know that. My pick to portray him would be Dev Patel, great acting chops, and would be great as a young Ensabanur.
I disagree. And I'll tell you why I disagree. I don't disagree that Dev Patel's a great actor.
Sure.
I mean, go see The Green Knight. Dev Patel is fabulous. I love him. But whoever you get to play Apocalypse, I think needs an incredibly distinct voice. Like Josh Brolin. I mean, he's got like that. He's got a Jeremy Irons kind of quality to his voice. Who is just the star of American Fiction again? Jeffrey Wright? Yeah. Jeffrey Wright has one of the coolest, best, most distinct voices in the business. Obviously the greatest of all time, James Earl Jones, things like that. And while Dev Patel is a fabulous actor, I don't think he's got the voice for it.
Mike Tyson does.
You're onto something there.
Hey, Mr. Sinister, let's go get the X-Men. I don't know. Do you agree with me? Disagree, Jeff? What do you think?
With like regard to
Yeah, like
Apocalypse
Dev
needing
Patel,
a big
yeah.
great voice actor, Dev Patel I don't really see. I think you're right. It has to be somebody with like this loud, booming, intimidating voice. I'm trying to think of like even Kevin Durant, who's in Apes, right?
Yeah.
As Proximus. Like,
Oh yeah, that voice was crazy.
I mean, yeah, I don't see Dev Patel as Apocalypse now.
Those X-Men, they're always foiling me. I'll murder them. I'll eat the children.
I'll eat the children.
I could see Dev Patel as Cyclops.
Ooh.
Oh,
I think I want somebody a little more rugged,
Little older.
and a little older, but I could totally see Dev Patel in an X-Men movie. Like the action he did in Monkey Man was fabulous. The action looked great.
Glenn Powell was Cyclops.
Glenn
He
Powell's
could be
not
a
a
good
bad pick for Cyclops.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this, but back in the day when they were making the original X-Men movie, the fan cast was Michael Biehn, who would have been a perfect Cyclops. But I think Glenn Powell would make a really good Cyclops too. That's a good one. All right, what's next?
Inspector Guru says, wait, no,
Nope.
Mr. I with another $20 super chat.
Thank you, Mr. I.
Hey, John, if you need to complete your Bring on the Filthy trilogy to go along with Kiss Kiss Gangbang and How to Drain Your Dragon, I present Debbie Does Disney, Bringing on the Filthy. I'll see myself out.
I don't think we've ever have we ever done a slip of the tongue and said Debbie
I don't
Does
think
Disney?
so. No.
No.
So yeah, I mean, one time we were for those of you who don't know, one time we were talking about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang,
See how you have
which
to
is a
slow down.
great. I know, it's be very careful. Which is a great movie. Shane Black, Val Kilmer, Robert Downey Jr. I love that movie. But we were doing a show once, and for some reason I said Kiss Kiss Gang Bang. And I didn't even notice that I said it, but the chat
And everyone
erupted.
died.
Everybody else on set, like, what? And I have not lived that down ever since. So the other day we were talking about, you weren't here, Jeff, but we were talking about, so a viewer wrote in and asked, what do you think the status is of this live action How to Train Your Dragon? And Rob started talking, and he accidentally, so we was talking, How to Drain Your Dragon. And I said, wait, did you just say How to Drain Your Dragon?
Yeah.
And of course that kind of went off the rails. So he probably won't be living that one down for a while. All right. What's next?
Okay. Now it's Inspector Guru. Hey, John, my lady thought of a great movie. The Leprechaun is a fed up Oompa Loompa from Willy Wonka. Random, but I thought it was pretty catchy.
You'll never get the cross permissions to do that. Look, I'm going to say something unpopular. I never liked the Leprechaun movies. I just thought
I don't know many people who have ever said the sentence that they do.
Now, was it Warwick Davis?
This is blasphemy in my book. Okay. Yeah, I grew up on those Leprechaun movies.
So did
Leprechaun
I.
2, that lawnmower kill. Oh, so good.
Now, was that Warwick Davis?
Yeah.
It was the Warwick Davis. When he would be on screen talking, I thought he was funny, but
Free nose job Jennifer Aniston.
all right. What's next?
Charles Becerra says from Montreal, I'm guessing
Nice.
is that Quebec?
Yep,
QC?
Quebec, Canada.
Okay.
Yep.
Tabarnak. Yeah, Tabarnak. I thought the Habs not making the playoffs was bad, but today Shannon is gone. A lot of drama in the T. John.
That was a very Canadian super jet.
Yes.
I had to struggle through that. I'm like, I'm reading
T
code.
dot is Toronto, just so you know. Look, whenever a season ends and you fall short, look, you don't have to win the Stanley Cup. Out of the 20, how many teams are even in the league now? 28? Anyway, out of the 20 plus teams in the league, only one is going to win the Stanley Cup. That's fine. But whenever a season ends and you didn't get to where you thought you could go, or you didn't live up to your potential, and the Canadians never were going to win the Stanley Cup this year, but they had better potential. But more importantly, Toronto, the Maple Leafs, their potential was more than a first round exit. But I told you guys, the moment I found out that they drew Boston in the first round, like Boston is Toronto's kryptonite. And I'm just proud of them that after being down 3-1, they got to Game 7 overtime. But there's going to be drama in every team, in every city. Whenever your team does not live up to its potential, there is drama every year, and there's going to be some this year. All right, what's next?
Moving on to our member chats. Dominic Suma says the Come and Get Your Love opening montage of Guardians is my favorite comic book movie intro scene. Immediately sets you up for the tone and feel of the movie and the franchise. In Gun I Trust.
It was to this day magnificent. It was so good that when they did Endgame, they had to go back to it. Remember? They go back,
Yeah,
you got
knock
War
him out.
Machine and who is
It's
War
Nebula.
Machine? It was Nebula. But this time you get to see Star-Lord doing the dancing, but we don't hear the music because he's got the headphones on and he just looks like an idiot. That was great. I will still say my favorite opening, I think, to a comic book movie. Man, I feel like we were just talking about another one too, but
There's two options here, I feel like.
okay, I want to know if one of them is mine, but what do you think?
The Dark Knight
Exactly.
The whole bank run, that's a great one.
and X2, Attack on the White House.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That the Nightcrawler attacking the White
Yeah,
House
that's great.
is such a ballsy right out of the gate, intense. I mean, I love that one.
One that I just it's I would not recommend this for any other facet of the movie, but it's Batman versus Superman. When Bruce
when
Wayne is running through
watching
the chaos.
destruction of Metropolis.
Yeah.
It's a magnificent scene. But I think I still got to go back to the first X-Men. Because remember, when the first X-Men came out, comic book movies were seen as a certain kind of thing. And then we all go into the theater for this X-Men movie.
Yeah.
And it starts in a Nazi concentration camp
Yeah.
with a
Fun.
child being torn away from his mother. And that was the flare shot up in the air, says comic book movies can now be something completely different. And so, yeah, I mean, so many good ones. So many good ones. All right, what's next?
Okay. CCTV says, I was not expecting Magneto to drain Logan like a dragon. Jaw-dropping moment there.
I have mixed feelings about it, though. And I mentioned it a bit on yesterday's show because that, of course, is a take from one of the most iconic panels in comic book history of Magneto ripping the adamantium out of Wolverine. But in X-Men 97, it's not earned at all. It's just a rando, oh, I'm going to stab Magneto. Ah, you stabbed me. Now I'm going to rip your Magneto. Like in the comics, it's something that is slowly, patiently built up, and then finally it comes to this head of, I've had it. And he rips the adamantium out of him. And then the consequences that come as a result of that later. In X-Men 97, and I loved the episode, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I loved the episode. But that moment is cheap in X-Men 97. It's like, I'm going to stab you. Oh, you stabbed me. And I'm going to rip out your... Like, it was just so throwaway. It was so random that it lacked the drama that in the comic it had. So anyway, that's just a little nitpick anyway. All right, what's next?
Logan Vaughn says, I remember seeing Rise of Apes back in theaters. My friends and I thought it looks really silly and dumb. But the no moment, I'm not sure which one that is.
It's Caesar. Yeah.
Put this movie on another level, plus the bridge battle. Anyway, I'm so excited for a fresh take on this franchise this weekend.
Yeah, listen, I didn't think, I still remember when they first came out with that first movie, thinking that you can't do, because we'd already gotten the Mark Wahlberg Planet of the Apes.
All right.
And it's like, I just didn't believe you could actually do Planet of the Apes without it being ridiculous. And then that James Franco one comes out. And it's like, wow. It was, what did you think of the first couple of Apes movies, Jeff?
The original or like this trilogy?
No, the most recent.
I thought it was really good. I'm a huge fan of those movies. Matt Reeves sequels in particular. Like I thought Rupert Wyatt did a good job establishing like the tone and everything, but I think Matt Reeves elevated that franchise and took it to another level. So yeah, big fan. Again, looking forward to this new one.
All right, what's next?
Espinoza has a fun fact. Did you know that before 13 Reasons Why was a Netflix show in 2017, back in 12, Universal was going to make it a movie starring Selena Gomez as Hannah Baker? I wonder what the film cast would have looked like compared to the show cast.
Having never watched a single episode of it, I couldn't tell you. Was it a book series at first?
I'm not sure.
I don't know if it was a series or just one, but yeah, it was a book before.
It was a book before. Okay, I know nothing about it. I never watched a series, so I didn't know. But you know, it's funny. A lot of movies that get made, if you look into the stories of them, they probably had a different iteration that they looked at first a few years earlier for somebody else. It happens a lot more than you think. All right, what's next?
Wesley Cunningham says new Quiet Place trailer still has me hyped, though I'm hoping Jaimon Hansu is in more than one or two scenes. First trailer made it seem like it would be him and Lupita.
No, it's more the kid. It's more Lupita and the kid from Stranger Things.
Yep.
Who's now Johnny Storm in Fantastic Four, and I'm forgetting what his name is.
Joseph Quinn.
Joseph Quinn, thank you. It's really more Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn. They showed us this trailer at CinemaCon. So to us, it wasn't a new trailer when I saw it, but it's great. Listen, I love this world that John Krasinski made. Loved it. I thought the first Quiet Place, honestly, that year, I thought it was the second best movie. No, I thought it was the best movie of the year. I think it was my favorite movie of that year. It was 2018. My second place movie that year was Black Klansman, which I thought was brilliant. And my third was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. But I love this universe that John Krasinski's made, and I cannot wait to see this movie, especially with Lupita Nyong'o in it. All right, we got time for about two more. What's next?
David says, not sure if anyone mentioned this yesterday about The Rock being Apocalypse, but MCU should consider going to the Transformers route and picking the voice actor from the animated series.
No. I'm going to go no on that. I'm not a big fan of the voice of Apocalypse in the original X-Men series. It didn't. I never did like it all that much. Now, granted, all of us, when we read a character, we have what their voice sounds like in our head. And if it does, then when you actually hear somebody doing the voice, if it doesn't match up with who you already have in your head, you're kind of biased. And I admit that, I do. But even in the animated show, I never thought it worked all that well. And I certainly don't think if you took that voice and try to transpose that into live action, I don't think it works. Like Optimus Prime's voice is just iconic, right? That like Peter's voice works well in animated, live action, whatever, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think the Apocalypse voice in the animated show would work well in live action. I could be wrong. I just don't think it would.
I just don't believe that voice actors have a claim of ownership when they do a live action role. You know, I think they're separate things.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, what's next?
King Daddy Goat says, hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. I checked out the first 2 episodes of Dark Matter on Apple TV, and shoo, I'm hooked. Can't wait till next week's episode. Thanks, and bring on Filthy.
Which one is Dark Matter?
It's with Joel Edgerton and Jennifer Connelly.
That's right. Look, I didn't know what the name of it was, but I saw one commercial for it. All I know is this. I love Joel Edgerton. Not just as an actor, but the way he picks what he wants to be in. And I've always liked his stuff. Do you remember that one he did about the creepy stalker kind of dude?
Gift.
The Gift. That I mean, he also directed that movie. I just love him. I think my first introduction to him. Which came first? No, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Phantom Menace came first, or the Star Wars thing. So he was obviously Uncle Owen already. But that movie he did with Tom Hardy, Warrior, where he was an MMA fighter. Awesome movie.
The movie of the year.
You thought it was?
I thought it was the best movie of the year that year.
Oh, I thought it was so good. And yeah. Anyway, okay. Sorry. What's next?
Kayak says, if we as an audience vote with our wallets, isn't it in our best interest to churn? Shouldn't we migrate between streamers and only pay them when new seasons or anticipated shows or movies become available?
Streaming service and movies that pop up in theaters are two completely different things. And we need to approach them as consumers differently, right? That being said, I don't churn. And the reason I don't churn is because my main reason for subscribing to any particular streaming service is not the new thing they have. It's their library. Library to me, and this, I'm not saying this is the way anybody else should feel. I'm just saying for me, library is my number one reason for subscribing to a service. Like I don't subscribe to Disney Plus so I can hang out and wait for the next Mandalorian season to drop. I like having the Disney Plus service because every once in a while I like to go in and pop on a Pixar film, or pop on one of the older MCU movies, or pop on one of the old Star Wars movies, or pop on one of the old, Disney animation classics. I subscribe to Max, not waiting for House of the Dragon season 2. I subscribe to Max so I can go in there and watch Sopranos, or I can go in there and watch like whatever I want. Like to me, it's library, and that's why it's not churn. Now, if you are somebody that you only subscribe to a streaming service for whatever's brand new, then churn becomes a more thing. Now, by the way, I've never said you shouldn't churn. Not at all. I've just said that's the biggest enemy for the streaming services. They're trying to get us not to churn. But if you're somebody who you really only subscribe to streaming services for the new stuff, then churning makes sense. And it's up to these streaming services to make it more compelling for us not to churn, like offering Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max together at a reduced cost. We'll probably all be less likely to churn if that's the case. So I've got no problem with people churning if you're only into it for the new stuff. And it's the studio's responsibility to give us good reasons to not churn. And if they fail at that, continue churning, 100%. All right, what's next?
Callum says, hey, crew, they just announced The Bear Season 3 is out June 27th with all episodes released at once. Is this a good move?
It's a fucking idiotic
No,
move.
it's a bad move.
It's the stupidest fucking thing ever. I listen, I don't mind these services experimenting, just as now Netflix, which always dumped all their episodes at once, are now experimenting with breaking up the releases. The streamers that have always released week to week have been doing a little bit experimenting. Amazon is one of them. They did it with Fallout. They're starting experimenting with, well, how does it work if we do drop it all at once? But case study after case study after case study has proved it is not a good strategy.
What's the experiment? We already know the answer.
Well, except they haven't really done it yet. So I kind of get it, but it's never a good idea.
I think it's just a matter of if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And right, that people are watching the show, people are liking the show, and it's winning awards, then they're going to keep, sticking with what works.
Yeah, look, I'll bring this up again, and I know you guys have heard me say it a couple of times, but take Fallout. When Fallout all dropped at once, I said 2 to 3 weeks from now, no one's going to be talking about it. No one's going to be talking about Fallout 2 to 3 weeks from now. When The Boys is out, we're talking about The Boys for 2 months. When Mandalorian comes out, we're talking about Mandalorian for months. And it stays as a conversation in the pop culture, and everybody's still talking about it, so more people start to jump on board with it. And because it's week to week, everybody's in the same place. Somebody wrote to me this morning, actually, say, hey, John, you never did do a... And by the way, I was right. Nobody talks about Fallout anymore. Nobody talks about... I haven't got a single question about it. Till this morning. Somebody, and it wasn't even about Fallout. Somebody wrote to me this morning and said, hey, John, just wondering, will you ever do like a proper review of Fallout? And I said, no. Like, we will never review any show that just drops all at once because there's no point. Because whereas you may have binged the entire thing in the first 24 hours that it drops, 80% of the audience is still on episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the audience might be on episode 4.
Right.
It's just... And some people, it's going to take them 4 or 5 weeks to finish. Some people, it's going to take 2 or 3 days to finish. There's no point in trying to review it. I mean, I remember we were still at AMC. When I was running AMC, we tried for a couple of the Netflix Marvel series to do like, okay, we're going to do a review. But it always entailed having to stay up all night to watch the new show that dropped, whether it was... The Defenders, or whether it was the new season of Daredevil, had to watch it all and then do a review the next day. But a lot of people couldn't even watch the review because they weren't idiots and staying up all night. It's so dumb. And them doing this with The Bear is completely idiotic. And I don't think they should be doing it. But I don't blame anybody for testing the waters, for just trying it out. So I get it. I just hope they realize sooner rather than later that's not a good thing to do. All right, last question of the day. What's next?
Okay. Sir Malmston says Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock, who starred in Speed, joined a conversation on a podcast and addressed a possible third film in the franchise. Could this happen?
No, it'll never happen. Yeah, I heard Keanu Reeves, good Canadian kid, by the way. I heard Keanu Reeves saying, we would kill it if we did a Speed 3. I have no doubt they would kill it. And I would love to see, whether it's the Speed or something else, I would love to see Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves together again. I would love it. No studio's going to greenlight that movie. Am I wrong, Jeff? What do you think?
Well, why? I mean, okay, so Speed 2 was terrible. Can't we just forget that movie happened? I think people love seeing these two stars together.
Yeah.
Sandra Bullock is obviously a much bigger star than she was in the first film.
Well, yeah, because she was a no-name in the first
Right,
film.
exactly.
Yeah.
I've long had an idea with my buddy Pete Friedman for Speed 3 with the 3s as the E's, Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Speed 3 Bullet Train.
Yeah.
Tagline is how do you stop a bullet?
didn't we just have a movie called Bullet Train?
Yes, we
Doesn't
did.
matter. This one
We
has
did.
Keanu Reeves.
But that right, it wasn't about like, the
Yeah.
fact that it was a bullet train,
you
right?
can't stop it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just think that there's definitely something there, and I would love to see another Speed, particularly with those two. But you're right. I don't think it's a priority over at 20th Century
It did
Fox.
remind me of what we covered in our documentary, your documentary, but what we covered, where Speed was kind of like his entrance into stardom. And then he died off because his popularity died off because he didn't do 2, and he kind of got blacklisted, right? And then Matrix resurrected his career, and then he fell off again. And then John Wick comes along. Well, he's gone back and he's given to the Matrix. He's still
Right.
giving to John Wick. I think it would be great to go back to Speed.
Yeah,
I
but
think
what
so,
happened
too.
when he came back to Matrix? Don't-
That's not his
It
fault.
wasn't good.
Okay, no, but
wasn't good.
Just like whatever would happen in Speed 3 has nothing to do with him,
No.
right?
But Speed
I'm
3
saying
would be good.
The audience didn't care to go back to Matrix.
I'll tell you, I'll be very curious how Twisters performs this summer, because if Twisters
That's a
performs
good
well,
point.
you could go back to
Twisters,
all these
Twisters.
movies that were in the mid 90s and say, okay, it's time to redo these.
Twisters is gonna be awesome. I don't know what you guys are scared for. I'm gonna be there.
Look, listen, I think you're right on several levels, because I am curious not just to how good or bad the movie is. I am curious on if the audience wants to go see it. Now, listen, take the IP out of it. There's always been an audience for big natural disaster movies, right?
Yeah.
So will the audience come out to Twisters, or will they think it looks too corny? I don't know. And should they have even called it Twisters? Maybe they shouldn't, because apparently it's not actually connected at all to the original movie.
Right.
I mean, I know every
So
time
maybe
a
they should have
trailer,
called it something else.
every time a trailer plays where I'm at, people kind of snicker.
Oh,
You know?
really?
So I don't know.
You shouldn't be going to the movies.
I think
with
it's
those
going to
people.
be.
I didn't go with them. They're in the theater.
I think
No.
it's going to be a hit.
Also, Speed 3 should be on a roller coaster. They can't stop this runaway roller coaster.
It just keeps going in circles.
Right. We're just doing loops.
And because if it stops, all the kids on that roller coaster blow up. See?
Oh, now I see.
There's a lot of things you could do, I think, these
I don't
days
think blowing
with
up
Speed.
kids is probably your best bet.
What about a
but, you know.
SpaceX runaway rocket?
Oh, it just keeps going.
No?
Scooter.
A
Scooter.
razor scooter? Is
What-
it electric? or are they
What's the name of the
If
brand
this scooter
that you,
goes
like,
below 30 miles
you
per
rent them
hour,
on the street?
Vespa.
No, you actually rent them on the street.
Oh, yeah.
They're all over Los Angeles. What are they called?
Birds.
Yeah, they're on a bird.
Birds.
You can't drop below 40 miles an hour. This thing doesn't even do 40 miles an hour. That's not my problem.
Oh, it's just one guy. They'll let it blow up.
No, but seriously, I think Howard Payne's son, you bring back someone as Dennis Hopper's son.
Looking for revenge.
You know, I
Which
think-
obviously would then have to be Jason Momoa, because that's what Jason Momoa does in these movies, right? He was the old villain's son. He comes back.
exactly.
I'm going to destroy you, Keanu Reeves.
And then Keanu's twin is John Cena.
His twin brother. John Cena showed up. Yeah, I'm your long lost twin.
Got to bring back Ortiz. That's all. I need Ortiz.
Oh, yeah.
He's just riding the bus again in this movie.
And obviously, you got to find a way that Jeff Daniels comes back. It's like, I didn't actually die. We had to let them think I died.
Right, exactly.
Back.
You never see a body, John. You never see a body.
Right? All right, guys. And that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions. Number one, because you gave us fun, interesting things to talk about. And number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the show, thank you guys so very much for your support. Don't forget to come on back and join us tomorrow, or I guess we're going to be talking about John Malkovich joining Fantastic Four. Looking forward to seeing you then. I want to thank Ray Ora,
See you later.
Jonathan Voico,
see you guys.
the In Snyder, Jeff
In
Snyder.
Snyder.
Thanks again for having me. TheInsnyder.com. We're going to have some big stories tonight and tomorrow night, guys. Big franchises. Stay tuned.
And most of all, thank you to you guys for joining us. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.